Throughout time, there have been two choices: either to let fate strike one down, or choose to be a salmon that will swim upstream and forge his own path. Bruce had already been late for his first class session. His books were unorganized and his disheveled hair showed he had been up all night. He was a night owl at heart, lost track of time, and now had to deal with the consequences of his actions. He knew it was a bad idea, but he was having too much fun online with his friends. Being how he had a bottomless pit of money, he could hop onto any game he wanted, with anyone he wanted, so long as they were playing. Unfortunately, now was not the time for games. Today was his first day in a new college. He sat down, looked around, aloof to his surroundings, and opened his textbook. Philosophy 1, it read. He started to skim ahead as other students filled the classroom. He looked up at the clock and noticed it was 5 minutes past 11 a.m. The professor greeted the class as he walked in. He wiped the dirty slate clean, then walked back over to lock the door. He must have been one of those professors, Bruce thought to himself. The class started as normal. The professor introduced himself and was proving to be quite a jokester. He was quite lively. He was a lively fellow and seemed to be in one of the most recent he seemed to be into the most recent memes and social media buzzwords. Bruce cracked a slight smile at one of his jokes before losing track of his mind. His eyes gazed outside. The sky was slight gray, overcast, and heavy puffy clouds were sweeping for miles over the city. The city reeked of urban decay, but despite that, the mood still seemed happy. Everyone was safe in here. The door knocked, and the professor got up to open the door. It was a girl, stunning, pale white skin with raven black hair that reached down to her shoulders in luscious black locks. She wore a long skirt, thigh-high socks, a dress shirt, and had vibrant green eyes. Her shy smile was infectious as she apologized to the professor.
Sorry, I'm new to this college, actually. I wasn't sure if I was in the right room or not.
Her bug-like eyes darted as her frame sunk in embarrassment. Bruce's eyes soon met with hers. Eye black, thick choker. Wow, she's stunning, he thought to himself. He soon darted his gaze back to the board. He felt as if it was awkward enough, being how she probably already felt humiliated in front of the entire classroom. Your name must be... the professor said before being interrupted.
It's just but yes, that's me, right there.
She said as she pointed to a name on the bottom of the sheet the professor had in his hand. Okay, M, take a seat wherever you please. We'll get you caught up, the professor said as he returned to the lecture. M glanced at Bruce as she walked over to the seat next to him. His heart rate raced, and he realized she was sitting next to him, of all people, freely out of her own will. Bruce had finished his report with about 5 minutes to spare. He looked at the class, then glanced at the mysterious girl sitting next to him. He blushed lightly, and her eyes roamed to meet his. A shy smile ran across her face before looking down too. Okay, class. As you know, in life, things can get blurred. Truth can be twisted, manipulated into something more or something less. It all depends who gets there first. Bruce, why don't we start with you? What corporation or company do you believe has lied to you the most? Bruce stood up and walked to the front of the classroom. PETA, I believe while their intentions are good, they have caused far worse damages in spreading misinformation. For instance, the dogs they've euthanized outweigh many of those they found homes for. They also have backwards mentalities regarding... He trailed off into his assignment and pointed to the door once he had finished. Restroom? The professor nodded. I'd rather he held it, though. last 15 minutes of this chapter. Then it's free time to do whatever you want. Study, or just look at your phone, or even go to the bathroom. It's fully up to you. It's the end of the class. Professor asked Bruce kindly, who nodded and returned to his seat. He held it for about an hour before he checked the clock. It was about quarter to the end of the class, so Bruce figured he'd excuse himself and began to make his way to the bathroom. After relieving himself, he returned to see the class had ended and only a few students remained. M had been eyeing his bag and seemingly waited behind for him.
10K dogs, am I right?
She smirked.
Sounds like they misheard rehousing with genocide.
Bruce tilted his head to look at her in confusion, but intrigue. Yeah. How did you know that? Study them too? M had piqued Bruce's interest, as he replied almost instantly.
Yep. But you mentioned you studied herpetology. Actually, let's take a walk. Do you have to go anywhere?
No, not in particular. Let me grab my books. M? A smile ran across M's face. She blushed and stood up with her school bag scrawling across her shoulder.
Yeah. M. It's nice to meet the Prince of Gotham.
M flirted. I was hoping I wouldn't be recognized, Bruce retorted. He smelled the air. The scent was that of blueberry and mangoes. He took another whiff, then looked to see had M had taken a puff of her vape pen when he was putting his books back. A unique scent for sure, something he never really smelled before. So, M, tell me, what about herpetology? Bruce perked up.
Yes, I was meaning to ask you, can you get high off of toads, or is that just some false thing?
She asked before letting out a laugh and blushing red. Bruce never really socialized with a girl before, certainly not of her looks. It was always private lessons to private schools to scholarships to this and that. He just wanted to feel normal, not seen as some celebrity. She certainly made him feel something, a spark perhaps, he hoped. He watched as she skipped down the hallway and dashed to the exit, holding the door open for him. The air was cool, and her raven black hair danced across the wind as she looked back at him with her hypnotic gaze. So, Em, where are we going? Bruce said as she wandered near a trail on a beat-off path off campus grounds.
Just a pond. Something cool I found. I don't know. I thought you might like it here. It can get kinda lonely, and I felt this place was nice. Sorry, that sounds kinda sappy, but hey, there's lots of wildlife. Besides, it's better than the campus cafe and going downtown.
Em smiled and sat on a bench in front of the pond. Bruce sat next to her. Why did you wait for me after class?
What?
Why did you, wait for me? You could have just, like the other students.
Oh, Bruce, do you need an explanation? I liked your report and I picked up on a few things about you.
Like what? Bruce tilted his head and looked at her eye to eye. He was a bit on edge. He had a bit of trust issues, but wanted to hear her out and see if she was genuine.
Well, first of all, Bruce, you've got a sense of morality and believe life is a life. That's the first thing. I admire that. I'm a bit similar. Maybe not exactly the same, but I understand it.
She smirked and playfully hit his shoulder. Well, I wanted to see a movie this weekend. It's been too long. My folks aren't home yet, so why not check out a new release? I know there's this cool Nazi zombie movie that opens this weekend. Apparently this historically accurate to World War II. Bruce was interrupted when Em jumped up.
Of course I will. That sounds like fun,
she exclaimed. She blushed and smiled before a buzz went off in Bruce's pocket. Oh, that must be a ride. So Friday, here, let me give you my number, and I'll see you then. 7 p.m. sharp, Gotham Cinema, 14. Bruce said as he grabbed his phone out of his pocket to see who was calling. Caller ID read Al. He grabbed a piece of paper, quickly jotting down his number and handing it to Em. She smiled.
You know, it must be nice having a chauffeur. Maybe I could ride in a limo with you someday, Bruce.
She teased before playfully pushing him.
Go on, I'll be fine. I'm looking forward to seeing you then.
Bruce smirked and ran over to the guest lot of the college, with M waving goodbye to him. The air was growing colder. The sun was now hazy orange with accents of purple dragging across the horizon. The bare trees stayed still, silent and sturdy, creating elegant shadows that painted the ground as if it was made of broken glass. He ran up to a sedan that rolled down its window to reveal an older gentleman with a pencil-thin mustache. His eyes were scarred from war, hardened but still noble and affectionate. "Mr. Wayne, I've been waiting for 15 minutes. Failing the class already, are you? No, philosophy isn't for everyone, but it's an easy A." The old man teased. Bruce laughed and jumped in the back. "It's fine, Al. I met someone. New friend, I guess. I'm meeting her Friday for a movie," Bruce said as he looked out the window smiling. Alfred chuckled. "I remember driving your parents to the movies when they were younger. Every Saturday. That was, of course, until they renovated the theater at home. You know, you could turn any time you would like. You don't have to live in a flat. I feel more close, grounded, more at home, you know. That and I don't get lost going to the bathroom." He smirked before shifting his seat to a more comfortable angle. "Hey, Al, how do you think I should let this girl know I find her attractive? What did you do?" "Well, usually after the movie, I'd take her for a drive. Of course, that was years ago, before I had to overlook you and tend the mansion. But try the mysterious approach. Be interesting. Leave her wanting more. Leave a hanging fruit." "Gotcha, Al. I think maybe I can handle this. Never was my thing, you know. First time's a charm, I guess." Bruce saw his flat approaching. The sky, now turning purple, showed that night was soon upon them. Cool air sucked into the car as Bruce opened the door when Alfred came to a halt to let him out. Bruce saluted him, and Alfred returned the salute. On most nights, Bruce would just run to his computer to log on with his friends, but he ran straight to bed. He was so excited that he just wanted time to speed up. This would be his first date since high school. He felt like a child on the night before his birthday. His flat was dimly lit, smelled of 3-day-old pizza. He always seemed to forget that Alfred wasn't there to clean up after him, but that didn't seem to bother him. He collapsed onto the bed and opened his phone to text M. "Can't wait," Bruce texted before passing out.
Same here. Looking forward to watching Nazis get ganked on the big screen.
M replied. The last visual that Bruce saw in his mind was that of a pale girl with raven black hair and vibrant green eyes. Bruce woke up to the sound of his alarm clock buzzing off from his phone. He coughed and groggily reached for his phone to silence it. He slipped out of his bed and onto the floor, moaning in defeat as he flopped his way to shut it off. Bruce despised the mornings, but he knew they were a necessary evil. He swiped right on his phone and lumbered up to his bed. Again, stretching and yawning. He was surprised to see him had kept up with good morning texts.
Good morning,
it read. Not many people, let alone a friend, had texted him that. He thought to himself, wow, I must really mean something to this girl. As he walked over to the bathroom to relieve himself, 3 days had passed since he met her, and through every day, she remained communicative over the phone. Bruce never had received this much attention from anyone outside his family. Bruce took a shower before responding to M. Today's the day, M. Looking forward to this. He texted back. He slipped into casual wear, jeans, leather jacket, slicked back his hair, deciding to rock the standard pompadour. He flexed in the mirror, posing a bit to see how he looked, and checked himself out. He was out to impress her. Bruce checked his phone. It read 11:21 a.m., and he sighed. He was so close, but the 8 hours seemed like an eternity. He had butterflies in his stomach and figured he should keep himself occupied. He sat down and started browsing online for motorcycle armors and motorized bike kits. You remember his father taught him how to ride a bike and how interested it would be if he could just slap a motor to it. He scoffed a bit at the pricing, not that he couldn't afford it, but it seemed to be outrageously marked up. Besides, he had money limit, courtesy of his parents. Bruce checked his phone after a couple of hours. No response. Strange. M was usually responsive instantly. She must be busy. Or, worst comes to worst, lost interest. Took the priority that it was the movie he wanted to watch anyway, just as a backup plan, and maybe Alfred would like to tag along too if push came to shove. He visualized it in his head, Al scoffing at the violence and inaccuracies. Despite being a cinema snob, he still loved Al's commentary, dry humor and wit. Clock struck 6:30 and Bruce ran downstairs to see Alfred waiting outside the car for him. Always on time, right on the dot. Bruce grabbed his house keys and exited. His heart was racing, and Alfred took notice that he stressed the moment he got into the back of his car. "Nervous on the first date, Master Wayne?" He joked to ease Bruce a bit. "Yeah, I guess." Bruce was quiet. He didn't know how to feel about a romantic connection quite yet. He was excited, but afraid to see what was going to come. They pulled up to the theater entrance, and Bruce hopped out of the car. "Call me when you're ready, Master Wayne. I'll be out by myself, so give me a half-hour's notice." Alfred called out. Bruce saluted in return, smiling at his butler. In a way, Al was like a father to him. Taught him how to hunt, self-defense, about fishing, nature, the world, its history. He almost wanted to be like him, noble, sturdy like a tree, so he took him as a bit of a model for the night. Bruce took a deep breath and stepped forward to the ticket booth. Ticket holder smiled and grabbed the microphone to speak. "Hey there, we'll be checking out tonight," man asked as he pressed some buttons on the monitor. "Overlord, 7 o'clock showing," Bruce replied as he handed the man his credit card. "Ah, okay, gotcha. It'll be on the left, auditorium 12. The man responded as Bruce handed his credit card back along with the receipt. Bruce thanked the man and continued to the auditorium. He saw there was only 6 people, but no M. Bruce began to worry, but held his cool. 15 minutes of ads ran by, and nothing. The lights dimmed and the movie started. Another 10 minutes rolled by. Bruce sank a bit in his chair, but tried to look at the bright side. At least there was a movie to keep him entertained. A loud burst from the door slamming open echoed, and Bruce saw a familiar silhouette walk along the aisle. He waved at her, and she took notice. Em had arrived. Late, but Bruce didn't care. He was happy she came.
Did I miss much?
Em smirked, and sat right next to him. Bruce smiled and blushed. Only the first 15 minutes. A cool airplane sequence, that was about it. Bruce whispered into her ear.
Sorry, I was held up.
Em blushed. Bruce eyed her up and down. She wore a skirt, black tights, a cat t-shirt, and her hair was recently done. She must have been late because she was getting dolled up. Dolled up for him. She was stunning. The smell of perfume, blue raspberry, and mangoes. Makeup hit Bruce. He was blushing red, but tried to focus on the movie. 2 hours had passed. Bruce texted Alfred that the movie was almost over, and he glanced over to Em, smiling before laughing and looking at the ground. He saw how she was doing the same. 10 minutes later, lights came on, and he saw how perfectly everything looked on her. Her makeup, her body, her smile, her nose, hair, everything flawless. He helped her out of her seat, and they walked down the aisle and to the front of the entrance where Alfred was waiting for them. Bruce waved, and Em waved too. "Master Bruce, I suspect this is the young woman you were gushing about." "Don't mind me, I practically raised this boy. He's a good kid. It's my job to embarrass him." Alfred smiled before shifting gears as Bruce got into the back seat. "Come with me. Check out the flat I'm living in," Bruce exclaimed. Em seemed hesitant. Her bug-like eyes sunk and darted around, as if she was afraid, but sat in anyway. Her smile returned and she held his hand.
Sure, why not? I've got time to kill.
She said, laying her head on Bruce's shoulder. Bruce smiled as they left for his flat. Bruce opened the door and turned on the lights. Already Em was running around looking at the things he had.
You have lizards? So cool. I want a tortoise. And this guy. Oh, sick. Wait, you have a figure collection too? Man, this TV is massive.
Em said as she darted from pet to pet, toy to toy, and anything that caught her eye. He sat on the couch and she hopped next to him. She grabbed the remote from him and looked for the web search.
Hey, do you like anime? I like it. Especially those abridged ones. Dude, you have to check this one out. It had me dying yesterday.
Em had pulled up YouTube and began searching. It was too late. She was hooked and wouldn't give up the remote now, but Bruce smiled. Her giggle was infectious and he allowed her to cuddle up next to him. She clicked on a video. It appeared to be some redub of a shonen anime. Bruce's interests were less so in anime, but so long as Em was happy, so was he. Hours passed and the clock ran 1:30 a.m. when Em got a phone call. Her phone buzzed and she grabbed it instantly. She stood up, excusing herself before going outside to take the call. A few minutes ran by and she came back in.
Hey, Bruce, I'm sorry, I just have to get going. I can hitch an Uber. My dad is just wondering where I am. I was so caught up in the moment that I lost track of time.
Em seemed so sad. She didn't want it to end, but Bruce understood. "What about next Saturday?" He smiled and held her hand as he stood up from his couch.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll see you next week in class too.
Em blushed and went to go kiss his cheek. Something stopped her, though, and she pulled herself back. She looked down as if she was ashamed of something.
Yeah, next class. I'll see you then, Bruce.
She said as she ran out the flat. Bruce opened the door to follow. "Hey, Em, I can wait with you while your Uber Bruce trailed off as he noticed she seemingly vanished. He sighed and fell back on the couch, reflecting on the day. He hadn't felt this amazing before. A feeling hit his chest, and he wasn't sure what it was. He grabbed his phone and it lit up with a text.
Hey, sorry about running off. I don't want you to think too deep into that. I'll see you soon. Get some rest, Bruce. Have a good night.
Bruce closed his phone, holding it to his chest before closing his eyes. Bruce woke up, remembering the past 2 days. His flat felt empty without Em, but she still texted him. She began to show her sense of humor, and started to open up. She was hilarious and certainly had a rather colorful vocabulary. She was trying to make friends, new friends, and make new friends she did. She amassed almost 2,000 new followers in the last day, and was beginning to become almost a micro-celebrity by herself. Still, despite the differences they had, and their different classes, Bruce admired that she felt comfortable around him, open to him, and that's all he wanted. Bruce finished washing up, and made his way to campus, Alfred, of course, teasing him about Em on their drive to campus. A routine was forming, and Bruce made his way to the classroom. The professor had finished writing the prompts on the board, and Em crashed into the class, her hair disheveled and books falling out of her bag. Bruce laughed and she blushed red as she took the seat next to him. Bruce tilted his head to the direction of the clock. It read 11:05, and she sighed. Late again. The professor stood in front of the class. Today, we will be talking about individualism. What makes you you? And teleportation. You'll understand soon as we get into this lesson. First off, Teleportation doesn't work the way you think it is. You're thinking of teletransportation. Now, feel your skin. That's you, right? Well, you're made of atoms, of course. And let's say we make a 99% copy of you. This is what teletransportation is. While we don't have the technology yet, this is the core concept. Your atoms are destroyed instantly. But in another area, let's say Mars for example, they are copied and replicated. In a sense, you're transported from one place to another. But again, you can only copy 99.9% of you. So tell me, is that still you? The previous copy isn't here anymore. It was destroyed, but this one is here now. I want to know your answers. So, who wants to go first? Bruce raised his hand and had a smirk on his face. I have a question, actually. Is there a chance that, let's say, we figure out this technology? What are the chances that it would hypothetically open up a portal to an alternative dimension with otherworldly beings that can be theorized as biblical entities? The professor laughed. No, Bruce. It won't open a portal to hell, although I suppose if we get into particle theory, maybe... Hey, focus on the subject at hand. You're making me think. I'm the teacher, you're the student. It's supposed to be the other way around. Bruce noticed Em was staring at him. A wide grin ran across her face and she leaned in to whisper in his ear.
Bruce, I want to use every move in the Kama Sutra on you right about now.
She giggled and held a laugh to herself. Bruce raised his eyebrow. He wasn't sure what he just heard. He felt he should wait after class to ask. After the lesson, the professor excused everyone. Bruce stood up and waited by the door, holding it open for Em. She smirked at him as they walked into the hallway. Kama Sutra. Does that mean you want to beat me up? Bruce asked, and Em burst into laughter.
You dumbass, you've never heard of it? It's an Indian book of, like, sex positions.
Em said through laughter. Bruce blushed and she laughed harder. Hey, it sounded like some sort of combat thing, like karate or taekwondo or tai chi. Bruce furrowed his brows at her. His cheeks were reddened in embarrassment.
Shh, quiet. Shh, it's okay, Bruce. Besides, we're almost at our special spot.
And smiled as she held his hand. They soon came to the spot by the pond. Bruce sat down and Em sat next to him.
Bruce, there's something you need to know. I like you, but I'm just a bit afraid, I guess. I'm not who you think I am. I just need time.
Em said solemnly. Bruce was confused. He stepped back. Thoughts raced through his head. Jumping from conclusion to conclusion, he feared the worst. And before he could stop himself, he blurted the first thing that came out of his mouth. You're cheating, aren't you? Or some sort of entanglement, right? I've seen this too many times before. What? What do you mean? Are you not the M that I met? Are you some clone? Em was silent. Come on, tell me. I need you to be honest. Bruce's tone was authoritative, but he tried to remain calm.
No, Bruce. I'm not... I'll explain it soon. I just need time. I just need to time this. It's important, okay? Please, Bruce. I already told you I liked you.
She stammered. Like can mean a lot of different things. Romantic like? What on earth could be so... What could be so earth-shattering? Are you a murderer?
No, I'm not sure romantic. I don't know, but...
But what? Look, Em, I can't have time for games, really, and if you're not going to be truthful from the beginning, I can't, well, deal with that right now.
Bruce, Bruce, no, it's not you. There's just something wrong with me, okay?
Do you have some disease, disorder? Is it something else? Look, Em, I don't want to argue right now, and Alda's probably already waiting for me. I'll talk to you later. And if you're looking around, maybe you should just be with some inner speed in level 2, you know. I'm bland, you're expressive. I like that, but maybe we should just cool it for a bit. I think we should have some time to clear our heads and figure out this. Bruce picked up his things and headed away from their spot. He didn't like where things were headed and decided to leave. He felt a hand reach for him, but he ignored it and walked off.
Bruce, please, I like you.
M's words trailed off as Bruce stormed off. In his mind, he was so used to disappointment. Despite having money, he couldn't figure out how to properly formulate human connections. Either he was manipulated to give money to someone he enjoyed hanging out with, or he was duped into using his status to get people into clubs. He figured he'd give her a break and let things cool. Just like his father, he was prone to anger, so he did what he thought was a smart move. The week wasn't easy, avoiding M's texts. Even when class rolled around, he left as soon as possible. M kept trying to talk to him, but he ignored her. He just sped off to escape. The next class rolled by, and she was still waiting for him by the door.
Hey, Bruce. Wait up. Do you have time to visit the pond?
She asked as she sped walk up to him. Bruce ignored her and tried pushing open the doors to the front of the building.
Bruce, stop, please. It's been a week or more, and we need to talk. Did I mean nothing to you? What was all that about?
M was quickly shut up by a door being closed in her face. Bruce turned back and saw that she slipped to the ground. Her nose was bleeding and she held onto it. Bruce closed his eyes and sighed as he kept walking. He turned back one last time to see a couple students comforting M. He could see she was crying. Sharp pain hit Bruce's chest and he rushed back home. His flat was empty again, quiet. He finally gained the courage to open his phone. Despite the fact he slammed an impact-rated door in her face, M still texted him.
Bruce, I wanted to say I was sorry about earlier. I should have given you some space. I still like you, I just hope we can talk.
Text read. It was sent 5 minutes ago. Bruce sighed and pulled up her number to call it. She answered immediately.
Bruce?
Hey, I just wanted to call to say I'm sorry for hurting you. I never intended for the door to hit you and the distance thing. This is just all new. I never was good at processing this stuff.
It's okay, I understand, Bruce.
Want to come by for burgers tonight?
Yes. Yes, I would, Bruce. Actually, can you come here? This is important.
Sure thing, Em. Sure.
I'll text you my address. See you at 8?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, see you then.
The call ended and Bruce sat in his chair, sulking, wondering what he was going to say and what he was in for. Alfred dropped Bruce off at the address. It was an older house, near a small bridge. The lights were on and he saw M was outside, smoking a vape pen. Hey, are you... Bruce said as he walked over to her. She looked up at him. She looked tired and stressed. There was a bruise on her nose. Her bug-like eyes looked into his, and she smiled lightly.
Hey, I'm okay. I just needed a smoke break. Come inside. My foster dad isn't home. Do you want any food?
Em said as she stood up and put her vape in the pocket. Was there something important you wanted to talk about first? Like you've been hiding this thing from me? Bruce followed her into the house. It was immaculate. The kitchen counter was clean, the floors mopped, the dishes done. For someone as clumsy and disorganized as M, her house was quite the sight. Deep down, though, he knew there must be some catch.
Yes. Come. My room. Take a seat by the bed.
Em walked into her room and Bruce saw clothes, shoes, papers, bottles, and emptied fast food bags thrown across the floor. There was a catch.
Sorry about the room, Bruce. I didn't have time to clean, but I escape here.
She said as she sat on the edge of her bed. Bruce sat next to her.
Bruce, I answered your question about why I want to chat with you, but I never explained why I liked you so much. To me, in this world, animals are something that are pure.
Em held a plush rabbit in her hand. She looked into its button eyes and handed it over to Bruce.
Animals are incapable of wrongdoing. They never do anything out of pure malice, only out of instinct or survival.
She said, watching as Bruce held her stuffed rabbit. What about cats? They toy with the prey, right? Bruce asked in response.
Cats play with their prey to figure out better hunting tactics. Cruel, but effective.
Em responded.
Animals, to me, are pure. And you remind me of one. There's something about you I can't put my finger on. There's pain behind your eyes. A loneliness. Something I share. Bruce, I told you I wasn't who you thought I was, and I will understand if you abandon me. Most people do.
Em said quietly. She was shaking a bit. This clearly was eating away at her, and Bruce could tell.
You are one of the few people who will know this. I was born outside of Gotham. My family was rich, but illiterate, incompetent, southern buffoons. I was always bullied in school for my interests, the way I looked, the way I acted.
Em said, trying to word herself carefully. Bruce was confused. She seemed to be quite the social butterfly, and had a magnetic personality as well as having a beautiful physique and face, as well as a hypnotic voice.
I never met my real parents. My dad adopted me when I was 15, and when I was 15, that was when I realized I was into certain interests. I was attracted to the same sex. I was always called girly.
Em was quiet. Bruce raised an eyebrow. You're into girls? Wouldn't you be called girly if you are a girl? Bruce was confused, and Em laughed.
No, silly. You'll understand. Just let me finish. It was also then I was sexually assaulted by my gym teacher. He got what he deserved. But I can't help but feel he was right. I did feel wrong. Something always felt off. And he told me when he was just finished with me that I should have been born a girl. I started to steal hormones at 15. I know you're confused. I look, walk, talk, and sound like a girl because I am one. But I wasn't always a girl. I was born male.
Em looked at Bruce. He was processing everything.
Bruce, it's okay if you don't like me anymore. I understand. I guess I'm the first transgender girl you've ever met.
Em said quietly. She hesitated before putting her hand on his. Bruce looked back at her. Despite having a bruise on her nose, she was stunning. His mind was conflicted. Bruce knew what he liked. He liked girls, and while she might identify as one, could he handle having a relationship with someone like her? It's all very new. I don't hate you. I just wish you told me sooner. I like you, I care about you, but I'm not sure how to process this. Maybe I could try? After all, you accepted me and wanted to know me, not for my money, or my flat, or family riches. Bruce responded. He took her hand and looked at it. Her black nails were perfectly done. They were milky smooth. Drifted to his cheek, and she gazed into his eyes with a hypnotic glare. They pierced right into his soul, and he found himself looking down.
I need you, Bruce. I trust you.
Em responded, and she huddled up next to him. And he placed a hand on her head. She laid it onto his lap. Do you feel safe? He asked.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Em said as she huddled closer. Good, Bruce said. His eyes looked into hers. He was still unsure. Em began to undress. Her fingers wrapped around the end of her shirt, and she slowly lifted it off her chest. Her thin, feminine frame was pale white, with an odd scar here and there. Her black hair contrasted her perfect skin tone and eyes.
I want to try something. Lay down,
she said. Bruce panicked, but decided to put his faith in her. Her hands went to his shirt and pulled it off. Then slowly she pulled his pants down.
Look at me, and only me,
she said. Bruce wasn't sure what was going on. He never had been intimate with anyone before. He closed his eyes and felt the warm press of her lips against his.
To me, you're an animal, pure, and you belong with me.
Em's words echoed through his mind, and they were all Bruce could focus on. It had been a week since Bruce had seen Em. Her hypnotic gaze penetrated into his soul and lingered. It was an experience. He was unsure how to feel. He knew he wasn't attracted to the same sex, yet this felt deeper than just sex. This was intimacy. She wasn't just a friend anymore, she was something more. He questioned if she was even a human. Her beauty stemmed mainly from her gaze, which were the first thought Bruce woke up to, and the last thing he thought of before falling asleep. They both opened to each other completely. Both lived lonely lives, and fate had seemed to connect them. Kindred spirits, perhaps. The scent of blue raspberry and mangoes still invaded his thoughts. She was like an angel to him, perfect in almost every way, especially her infectious smile. The way how she was able to word and press the right buttons, it just seemed too good to be true. It was Saturday. He hadn't seen Em show up to class all week, but she texted him that he'd be seeing her Saturday. She wanted to see what made him tick, progress the relationship further. Bruce sat patiently by his computer. The doorbell rang, and he ran over to the peephole. It was her, wearing a cardigan, tank top, flats, and skinny jeans that ran up just past her shins. He opened the door with a smile, and Em pulled Bruce into a bear hug. He was a bit taken aback, but slowly put his arms around her.
I missed your arms. How's Al doing?
Em asked, as she pulled back and went to straighten her hair. Al is fine, Em. He went out on some date to a fancy restaurant, I guess. He's got the love bug, too, Bruce said as he kissed her cheek. He held her hand, leading her inside.
Al, being the romantic type? He never strikes me as that. Funny. Bruce, you have a killer PC rig. Mind if you boot up something for a benchmark? I always wanted to play on a high-end PC. My family just could never really afford such a thing.
Em remarked. Yeah, I'll show you my favorite RPG and FPS. I feel you'd enjoy PC gaming. Yeah, we're all nerds here, but that's hip and in now. Even the bullies are nerds these days, Bruce joked. He brought her upstairs and launched the FPS. It was a newer release, and he figured she might like the gore and satanic imagery / style.
Water-cooled too? Wow.
She said as she laid on his bed. His PC was so close to the bed that she was within arm's length of his gaming chair. Bruce started up the game and showed her gameplay. Unfortunately, she seemed to become the second focus as he got sucked in. Bruce became frustrated at his game, and to try to grab his attention, she tried striking poses. She started by playfully kicking her legs in the air, which didn't alert him. Bruce was in a mode that he would not be easily broken out of. She tried again 2 minutes later before kicking his shoulder with her foot. She had just shaved, and her legs were milky smooth, borderline shiny. Bruce's eyes started to look at it quickly before returning to the game.
Hello, you have a girl here.
She teased. She had seen enough of his tech demo, and she wanted something else. At the very least, a cuddle. She rested her calf on his left shoulder, and she began to laugh. "What?" Bruce said as he clicked and tapped away at his keyboard.
Leg.
She said, teasing him more. Bruce sighed and paused the game. He looked at her, and a shit-eating grin ran across her face.
You like legs, don't you, Bruce? Is that it?
She cooed. Maybe I do. So what? What's wrong with liking legs? Bruce sparked back, while his eyes started back and forth in embarrassment.
Why don't you give him a touch, hon?
Em said. And he obliged. His hands ran along her shin, and she let out a moan. His hand climbed further up her leg, before she put her leg down. She pulled off her cardigan and threw it over his head. She pulled him forward, giggling as she did so, and cupped his cheeks as she took the cardigan off him. Her lithe body sat before him, as he looked into her eyes.
Mine.
She giggled and kissed him passionately. It was brief, but like a fireball it all went by in a blaze of glory. When finished, they laid next to each other, exposed and vulnerable. Em stood up and went to grab her pants. She pulled out a pack of cigarettes and a lighter from her pocket. She began to take a puff before going to the bathroom and putting out the embers. She returned to Bruce and laid on top of him. His eyebrow rose. Smoking more cigs, huh? What about the vape? Not that I'm complaining, it's your life choices, but you were inseparable from that thing, he said as he ran his fingers through her hair.
I need my nicotine, Bruce.
She chuckled before kissing his cheek.
Relax, they're just cigarettes, not cocaine or heroin.
Bruce smiled at her and began to fall asleep. She wrapped her arms around him and whispered in his ear.
You know, I was thinking maybe I could sleep over, pop in a movie. Oh.
Em blushed as she realized Bruce passed out next to her. After a few minutes, boredom took over, and she began to search through his flat. She found he had numerous books, comic books, novels, and guides to herpetology. She pulled one out and saw he had numerous notes on iguanas. Bruce seemingly had to have a fascination with her ability to survive in so many environments, seemingly adapted to almost everywhere. She got an idea. Tomorrow, she'd take him to the pet store to buy one. Being how she couldn't have kids of her own, she figured this might have been the next best thing. They could raise it as their child in a sense. She began to fantasize about what life would be like living with Bruce. He made her feel so safe in his arms. She pulled out more books, and pulled her raven locks into a bun so her hair wouldn't get in the way of her perfect green eyes. Bruce began to wake up a few hours later. The clock ran 9:43 a.m., and she was still in a trance. He moaned as he got out of bed and she jumped.
Bruce, you're awake. It's been about time. Hey, I've been spending all night looking at your books. I hope you don't mind. Normally I'm more interested in the occult, but I have an idea. Come on, wash up. We don't have all day.
She squealed in excitement. Bruce groggily went to his shower and washed up. She would join him shortly after the hot water was running and held onto his waist. She smiled, not saying a word, partly because he was still waking up and didn't know if he was in a dream or not, but also he had a colorful vocabulary and usually had the personality of a bear that had just been kicked out of sleep when waking up. Once clean and groomed, he finally began to speak up. Hey, so what's this idea of yours? A secret?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean?
Just shut up and come with me, alright, Bruce? Trust me. I think I like this idea.
She nudged Bruce and he sighed, rubbing his eyes. Alright, call an Uber. Al deserves a break and it's too early to bug him yet. Bruce sat with M in the back of a white sedan. Uber was paid for by her, and Bruce watched out the window. The city he grew up in looked so different compared to when he had first started to explore at 5. Memories of his parents flooded his mind. He hoped they were okay back at the manor. But Bruce's eyes widened as they approached an exotic pet store. They got out, and a smile crossed Bruce's face. Em put her arm around him and whispered in his ear.
An early gift. I remember seeing that they sold iguanas in the back, so pick whichever one you want, hun.
Bruce and Em walked to the back of the pet store, and instantly Bruce saw something that drove him wild. They have an exotic iguana. I've always wanted a blue iguana, and he's the last one left. Bruce smiled at Em, and she smiled back.
I knew you would have loved to have one, and since I can't raise a child of my own, maybe we could make him our son.
Em smiled and gave Bruce her credit card.
I know you're a billion gorillionaire, but I need this. Please.
Bruce smiled and took the card to the front desk. A shy smile came across his face as he asked for the exotic iguana in the back of the store. When they returned home, Bruce immediately began to set up the cage while Em tried to coax the reptile out of its carrier case.
Hey Bruce, do you think you'd like trap music?
Em asked as she pulled out her phone. The iguana shut its eyes and curled into the back of the carrier. Probably not. Try reggae or some classic rock, maybe Black Sabbath? Bruce responded as he drilled into the cage frame. Em continued to play her music on her phone. The shrill beats of the song she chose only seemed to make the animal more confused and upset. Bruce sat the drill down, walked over, and took the phone from Em, typing in on it. War pigs, Em. Try this, Bruce said as he sat the phone down in front of the case and returned to building. The opening riff of the song began, the lizard's eyes opened. Bruce lowered the volume, and it seemed to be a lot more receptive. Bruce smiled as the lizard tilted its head. It was more curious, if anything, and licked the screen. Em let out a chuckle and blushed. She continued to watch as Bruce returned to finish the cage and put on the finishing touches.
Aw, look at the little guy. I think we found what kind of music he likes.
Em pet the top of the reptile's snout before setting the reptile in its enclosure and jumping onto the bed. Bruce walked over and took him out, observing it as it looked back at him.
Bruce, come. I think he's had enough excitement for now. These guys need their downtime, and we just got him anyway. Let him settle in.
Bruce put the blue iguana back into its cage before jumping into the bed next to Em. They laid next to each other, silent, staring up at the fan on the ceiling. Em let us a sigh and snuggled into Bruce.
Sometimes I wonder about a lot of things. You came into my life and made me think. I didn't think I could feel something like this. I never really had a boyfriend like you before. All my life I was beaten by my partners, cheated on, broken up with. You haven't done any of that yet.
Em said solemnly. What? Of course, I think you're goofy fun, like I said. Tell you what, Em. Why don't you invite some of your friends over tomorrow? Or, better yet, we'll go on campus. Or the mall, Bree said, as Em's eyes lit up.
I actually like that idea. Yeah, I'll shoot out some invites. The mall sounds fun.
Em yawned, with a smile before grabbing her phone and typing away. Bruce curled up and covered himself under the blankets. Winter was still on its way, and thankfully, the heat pad and the heat lamp set up were enough to keep the iguana warm. When Em finished, he pulled her close. He looked into her eyes, then observed her face, memorizing every detail. The small imperfections only made her more beautiful to him. She kissed him goodnight, and he closed his eyes, fading off into the night. Bruce sat at the table waiting for M to sit. She was waiting for some tacos at the courtroom of the closest mall to his flat. It was small. Most shops were closed. The scent of urban decay still ran rampant through the halls of the massive center. But he loved it. He had many memories of it, and there was a movie theater nearby if he felt bored anyway. He looked at his watch, taking note of the time before he heard a chair move. He looked up and almost jumped back in surprise as a large man sat next to him, his eyebrow raised, before realizing this was M's friend. His head darted to the left as he saw another large man sit next to him. He noticed as two more people sat across from him at the table. One was short and seemed of Korean descent. The other wore a lab coat and had bright pink hair. Her face was decorated with stickers, and Bruce's face fell from neutral to mild in comfort.
Sorry if we came off a bit blunt, but we hadn't met you. When M called me, I just had to call the cavalry.
The girl with the pink hair exclaimed.
I'm Harles. The girl next to me is Kai. And the ones next to you is Mark and Ty. And with M, that makes us 5.
The girl with the pink hair put her hand out, waiting for Bruce to shake it. He tried to smile and reluctantly shook it as polite as he could.
Mark Ty off. He's mine. Let me remind you, if you...
M yelled before stopping herself. The two men stood up instantly and moved chairs. M sat next to Bruce and offered him a taco. M's eyes darted around as she put her head down as if she was scouting the area.
We were supposed to agree on this. Just you and Kai. You don't have to bring all of us.
M glared at her friend. Harles pulled out a lighter and began to roll a blunt. She began to smoke and tossed it to M, who took a hit before handing it back.
Well, how would we know if he wasn't going to hurt you like the last one? M?
Harles glared back at M. Bruce stood up and grabbed the taco M offered him. Look, I feel I walked in on something. I'll let you two finish up as I go use the toilet. Mark stood up and pushed Bruce back into the chair. He dropped his food as he was forced in. Not yet. We've gotta have a talk. M stood up and yelled,
Enough. Bruce, go take your shit. Mark, Ty, shut the fuck up. Harles, you do what I say. Kai, well, just sit there and look mundane.
Bruce walked over to the bathroom before making his way out of the back entrance of the mall. His mind was racing. Who even was M? What was she doing with these thugs? Were they going to rob him? Did they need him for something more nefarious? He opened his phone and dialed Al. Al, I need a lift. ASAP. The state went south. Bruce said frantically. He knew the kinds of people she was hanging out with. They weren't like her, quiet, reserved. They were like a pack of starving wolves. Bruce waited for Alfred not too far from the exit for about 5 minutes before Al was pulling up. Bruce speed walked over before turning back as he heard the exit door open. It was M. She stood there, frozen.
Bruce, wait.
M cried out. Bruce ignored her command and jumped into the back of Alfred's car.
Bruce.
M screamed as she fell to her knees. Bruce looked back to see she put her head in her hands. She saw Harles walk over to put a hand on her shoulder. Typical woman, Bruce. What trouble have you gotten yourself into, my boy? Al said as he looked into the rearview mirror. Al, the people she's associated with probably need to be Baker acted, to be honest. Fucking weirdos. Bruce sighed and tried rationalizing everything in his head. Maybe she's in bad debt and she owes them. doesn't make sense. She's just too sweet for that crowd. Or maybe she's falling into the same trap as before, becoming a victim. No, it's too convenient. I just don't understand why. Bruce, maybe it's just in her nature. Sometimes when an animal or a person is raised a certain way, they can't break their ties to their nature. A shark kills, a bear forges, a bird flies, and thugs, well, they're thugs. You know this, Bruce. Al said solemnly. Bruce's phone began to ring. It was M. He answered, but was silent. M was on the other side, breathing and sobbing.
Hey, I know that was a bit odd, but I didn't intend for things to go that way. I know they intimidated you, but they follow what I say, and I think it's too early to introduce you to Ty and Mark. I met them on campus not too long ago, but they were only messing with you. I didn't want you to feel intimidated, and things didn't go to plan. Look, Bruce, just let me make it up to you. Please? Bruce?
Em tried keeping her voice straight. Bruce could tell through the voice crack she was genuine, but he was getting upset, and he was still edgy. How long? Look, Em, you have a problem. First it was vapes, then cigs, then weed. Look, I know that's not some devil drug, but it's a bit alarming. Bruce was cut off with a sharp turn from her voice.
Bruce, I can quit these at any time I want. I'll do this for you, okay? Just don't go. There's another movie I want to see. I know you don't like anime, but I grew up with this. I wanted to see it with you. It would mean a lot, and I think maybe that's what we need right now.
Em tried to reason. Alright, look, Em, I get it. Gotham is new to you, but those friends aren't your friends. We've only been dating a short time too, and you're telling me you have a big connection with these people? Look, it's just calling everything into question, but you know what, maybe you're right. I think the movie is just what we need. We can ease into the friends thing eventually. Maybe. Bruce rubbed his forehead.
Bruce, I'll order the tickets right now. Saturday, 7 p.m. We can check out the mall ourselves beforehand. Just me and you, okay? And I'll spend New Year's at your place. There's also a cool Blood Eclipse on the 19th of January. I think we'll have a lot to look forward to. I promise. I promise I'll make it up to you.
Bruce hung up on the phone and rubbed his eyes. He was just annoyed over anything else. Now we play the waiting game, don't we, Master Wayne? Al sighed alongside Bruce. Bruce waited outside the mall. Memories of the two brutes and odd friends of M flashed through his head, but he ignored it. He looked out across the pillars of the mall entrance to see that M was arriving. She wore her stable black gothic attire, only one noticeable change. She was thinner. Very thin. Like she starved herself for a week. Regardless, Bruce ran up and hugged her as she hugged back. She smiled at him. The black matte lipstick only made her radiant smile glisten more.
Ready for the action now, danger boy?
She smirked slyly. Bruce cringed at the reference. Her gaunt cheek showed signs that she was either experiencing some form of withdrawals, hadn't eaten lately, or she was on something new. Bruce tried to ignore it. He kissed her and smiled.
Hey babe, sorry about everything too. It's not easy being in Gotham. Just be careful, okay?
Bruce smiled through the kiss and ruffled her hair, and as his lips pulled away. So, what's the plan?
Well, I was thinking we could check the vape shop. I need some more blue raspberry and mango juice. I figured I'd switch to that instead of blueberry. It seems to be more in stock. Maybe I could pick you up something too.
Em said as she grabbed Bruce's hand and walked over past the food court and made a beeline to the vape store. I don't smoke, Bruce whispered again. He found his nostrils were assaulted by various odors and smoke flavors as Em pulled him into the shop. He saw interesting-looking ashtrays. One seemed to be guarded by some clay demon serpent, which he took a liking to. If anything for the design, on the upper shelf on the left-hand side of the store were 2 Israeli gas masks. An interesting find for sure. Em walked to the front desk as Bruce walked around observing everything around him. Em finished her purchase before coming back to Bruce.
They have some pretty sweet things here. Oh shit, look. Gas masks.
Em gained a devilish grin, an impish smile that let you know she was just thinking of something crass or crude. No, I'm not wearing a gas mask, Em. Bruce rolled his eyes.
Oh, you're not going to be the one wearing it.
Em moaned in his ear. Bruce tilted his head as she laughed. She checked her phone before realizing it was past 6:30. The movie was about to begin soon.
Shit, we need to run.
Em grabbed Bruce's hand and ran with him to the movie theater nearby. By the time they reached it, the clock read 6:55 p.m. Em pulled out 2 tickets. 2 hours later, they came out of the theater laughing and smiling, as if everything was back to normal.
Hey Bruce, let's go back to your flat. I wouldn't mind being choked like that end fight.
Em chuckled. Bruce spat out the slushy he was drinking and turned to look at her, clearly amused. Is that a dare? Are you challenging me? Bruce snickered.
Right then. Challenge accepted.
Bruce kicked open the door with Em in his arms when they returned home. He threw Em on the bed and she moaned. She noticed a shimmer of light reflected from a shiny object under the bed. It looked to be a knife. Strange. But she remembered it might be because of the nightmares or protection from a robbery. She turned her gaze to Bruce, who spread her legs, held her close, leaned in and pressed his lips against her. They continued to entangle their bodies, increasing in aggression, and with each thrust and moan, Bruce's hand drifted from her stomach to her neck, where he lightly pressed down, making sure he applied the right amount of pressure. Em was caught in a crave to lust, and soon found her hand drifting towards the knife under Bruce's bed. She panted and moaned, her eyes lolled to the back of her head, and Bruce applied more pressure. As she got closer to a climax, her instincts kicked in. She grabbed the blade of the knife, cutting her hand open before putting it to her throat.
I want you to slit my pathetic throat and fuck the hole.
She yelled as she put the blade to her neck. Blood splattered onto the pillows and Bruce jumped back, grabbing her arms and restraining her. What the fuck? Was all Bruce was able to muster. Em snapped out of her trance and threw the knife to the ground. Bruce threw her off the bed and she curled up in the fetal position. Her bug eyes darted around rapidly as if she was trying to find an escape route. She shrunk into a submissive position again, and her demeanor completely changed.
Bruce,
She whimpered. Em, what the fuck was that? Jesus! Babe, I keep that there in case someone tries to kill me in my sleep. It's not for you to... Fuck! It's not a sex toy, or a toy at all. Bruce ran over to the bathroom to grab a medical kit. Thankfully, the blood was bright red. She hadn't gotten a vein. He rushed over to her side and immediately began to apply aid to her hand.
Bruce, don't go. Please, don't go.
She was shell-shocked, seemingly flashing back to the night she was assaulted. She sat up when Bruce was done, only to rock back and forth. He wrapped his arm around her and did his best to comfort her. Oh, Em, you're okay, just don't do that ever again. And you're going to therapy. I'll have a schedule appointment for you next month. Bruce whispered and kissed her head.
Bruce, There's something inside me and I'm afraid. I don't know who I am anymore, what I am, where I am. Bruce, I'm afraid. Please, just don't abandon me.
Em muttered to herself. Em, shh, it's okay. I love you, Bruce said as he held her close to his heart. Despite the way she was born, what she just did, he saw that deep down she was just a scared child. A damaged soul that deserved love. His love. Scarred. And afraid. If he was really her idea of innocence, then she was his idea of inspiration. Hope. A life of peace. And he'd do anything to keep that safe. He held her before carrying her to the sofa to rest as he cleaned his bed of the blood. She seemingly sat there, processing everything.
Bruce,
She broke the silence.
I love you too.
She said, before curling up and going to sleep. Bruce stood over her until the morning, making sure she was okay. Some time had passed since M's incident. Bruce opted to spend Christmas Day with his parents, but he promised she could live with him at the mansion after New Year's. Thomas and Martha embraced him with a warm hug and recollected their days raising him. He seemed to be the spitting image of Thomas, and it especially showed now that he was nearing maturity. He was a young man now, no longer just a boy. He received an old vintage truck that he could play around with, but not much else. Still, he was just happy to be home. Alfred, of course, joked with Thomas about the old days, while Bruce prepared dinner with Martha. As for Em, things weren't so great. She was stuck at home with her family, a father who, to say the least, didn't accept her way of life, and had a problem with alcohol. Cracking pots and pans were thrown about. Em curled in the corner of the living room, and her father hit her in the back of the head with a heavy Bible. He had whipped himself into a drunken rage again, but this was different. Em just knew it. I didn't raise a faggot. Come on, stop this girly shit. You're a boy, for fuck's sake. It's Christmas, goddammit, and I want it normal. What a disappointment. A fucking joke. Her father yelled. He was erratic. A flicker of rage pierced through Em's heart, and she stood up. Where the fuck do you think you're going? You're coming with me to your relatives, and you're taking this bullshit clothing off you just for once. God. Now what? Going to whore yourself out, Matt? He yelled as she put on her jacket and grabbed her purse.
It's M, father, and I'm a girl. Fuck you. I'm not going to be your whipping toy anymore. I've been abused by you for too long. I'm happy with Bruce, and if you don't accept my life, then I don't care. I don't need your validation. Goodbye.
Em rushed out of the house. Her father chased after her, shouting, but Em had it. She started to run through the winter wind and freshly fallen snow. He grabbed her shoulder and began to pull her into the house. She kicked and screamed, but no one came. She prayed for Bruce, tears streaming down her face. He threw her against a wall, causing a framed picture of a jester entertaining a king to fall to the ground. Glass flew off it and onto the floor. Her father began to hit her again, and Em soon found her eyes dilating. She was growing aroused. She wasn't sure what was causing it. The pain, or wanting to inflict the pain. She grabbed a shard of glass with one fell swoop and gashed her father along the arm. He cried out in pain, but she kicked him in the back and continued to stab him in the chest. Blood splattered on her as she continued to attack him. He spat out dark red liquids onto himself and looked down to see his entrails strewn about. Em was whipped into a frenzy, as if this was the accumulation of years, a life of torture and abuse coming to a head. In a sense, she felt free in the chaos, reveling in it. She felt a giggle escape her mouth before she fell back and scooted over to the wall, realizing what she had done. She put her hand over her mouth and began to cry. The blood covered her lips and cheeks, and the makeup began to roll down her eyes. She felt so disgusted with herself, with the world, with everything. She sniffled and picked herself up, tiptoeing around the dead body of her father. She changed into a new pair of clothes and put on her rounded vintage shades before locking the door behind her as she left. She walked until her feet hurt. Cold wind air blew against her hair and it trailed behind her like a cape almost. She opened her phone and reluctantly called Harles.
Harles, I just did something terrible. But it's over now. There's no going back. I just have to wait a while. Wait for the dust to settle so I can move in with Bruce. I need a few weeks. You got me until the 20th. Midnight. You mentioned something about the 19th. That blood moon, right? The thing. What role do I need to play? And how much are we talking to?
Finally choosing the right thing to do, huh, Em? Take my advice, though. Bruce will snap if he figures out what you have just done. Like you said, you have a few weeks before people figure out. You gotta drop him when you can, though. You saw that weirdo react to us. We were nothing but kind to him. Except, well, when... Doesn't matter. Have fun, run around town, enjoy life, then give me a call a bit before the 19th.
The phone hung up, and Em began to make her way to Bruce's flat. It was freezing out, and she was ill-prepared for this type of weather. She couldn't just go back home, not until the dust had settled, and it was only a matter of time until her father would be found, although she doubted anyone would miss him. She just curled in front of Bruce's doorstep. She felt her eyes close, and watched as her life flashed before her eyes. The cold was gone, the wind ceased, and nothing but the thought of a life peacefully living in Wayne Manor with Bruce flooded her mind. In her arms, a child with Bruce embracing them in a warm hug. His mouth opened to say something, although she couldn't comprehend it. She tried reading his lips, grew to yelling, followed by a blurry haze of white light. A ringing shot through her ears as she woke up to see Bruce shaking her awake. Em! Jesus, you're alive! What the hell happened? Why didn't you call me? It's already, what, 11:40? Noon? You could have caught frostbite. How long were you out here for? All night? Bruce hugged her and carried her inside of his warm abode. Em mumbled to herself, trying to wake up. Bruce ran to the kitchen to turn on the warm water and set a cloth underneath the faucet. He grabbed his blankets and set her on the couch, and set everything up to warm her. She looked up at him as her head weakly fell back.
Bruce, I just want you to know that I didn't mean to. I missed you. She
mumbled before Bruce put the warm, damp cloth over her forehead. Em, you could have caught hypothermia. Jesus, babe. Just rest. Give yourself a minute. Here. Let me turn on the TV. Bruce's hand rubbed her cheek before grabbing the remote and turning on the local news. He took her in out of the goodness of his heart. What he got in return will shock you. Police are trying to find the suspect of a violent murder by The TV was cut off by Bruce as he switched the channel, hoping something good was on. We don't need that right now. What we need is for you to rest up for an hour or two, alright? Nothing stressful. I'll be at my desk. I've got an old friend to connect with. Can you believe I've known Jim since middle school? Crazy how time flies, right? Anyways, we've got a few years worth of catching up to do. Knowing him, he's probably already climbed the ranks of GCPD. Rest up, love. Bruce left the remote next to M, within arm's distance as she snuggled into his covers. It had a scent on it, and she held it tighter as she tried to warm herself from a night of sleeping on the concrete. M woke up to the sound of Bruce making food, or attempting to. It did smell quite good, and she stumbled to her feet. She wobbled over to the kitchen to see he was making pancakes. "Hey babe, you've been out for a while. Almost all day, actually. I was getting worried about you. Looks like there's a blizzard outside, though. I'll be stuck inside for a while anyway." Bruce sat down at his table with the fresh pancakes and syrup. He set them down and motioned for M to take a seat.
Thank you, Bruce, for everything. I really should be more...
M said shyly as she sat down, but Bruce interrupted. "M, it's fine. Really. I like you just the way you are. Now, eat up. Oh, I have a question. Why the name? M. I never asked you about it," Bruce said as he took a bite from his pancake.
Well, it's the first letter of my dead name. I chose M because it's, well, kind of like M, like Emma and such, but it gave me the feeling of being able to stand out a bit, and it's easy to sign. Just M, nothing else, no last name, none of that bullshit. I mean, you're Bruce fucking Wayne, right? Your name stands out by itself due to the reputation, but I want to build something like that for myself too, you know?
And poured an unhealthy amount of syrup onto her pancakes. Bruce laughed a bit as she began to devour the breakfast he made for her. "So, M, I wonder what you were planning on New Year's," Bruce said as he took another bite.
Well, I'm gonna have to stick with you for a while until we move in, so I guess nothing much will change, although I just want something simple. Picnic dinner. I mean, I'm pretty much kicked out of my dad's place, so I guess it's up to fate.
She smiled. New Year's had come. Bruce and Em sat at the local park, and Em smiled with glee as she jumped into Bruce's arms as the clock struck midnight. She kissed his cheek, leaving a smudge of black lipstick. Fireworks ripped through the sky and exploded into a million particles and gleaming lights. Bruce held onto her tight and smiled into a kiss. "Em, you know, you came into my life and gave me something I never had before, you know. I know you've got some things to still manage, but this right here is what I fell in love with." Bruce poked her chest. "You have soul, Em. You have something great. Made me laugh, smile, cry, all of it. I wouldn't trade this for anything. I think you're perfect, just the way you are." He held his forehead to hers.
Bruce, I don't know what to say. I'm glad I brightened your life. I have a funny feeling.
Em's smile faded. She became somber.
I'm afraid, Bruce.
She hugged him tightly.
I'm afraid I'll lose you. I'm growing close to you. My chest hurts when you're gone. Whenever I'm alone, trying to rest, I just imagine you next to me. Sorry, I don't want to lose you. I've already lost enough in my life.
She gripped onto Bruce, who just looked in confusion. He laughed. "Babe, I'm fine. I'm not going anywhere, I promise you. I'll be alright in the end. Here." Bruce pulled himself away and pulled out a pocket knife. He walked to a tree and began to carve into it. Em placed a hand over his and took the knife. She began to etch in a Norse rune.
For us, strength and bond.
She finished the etching and handed the blade back. The wind began to blow hard. Light snow particles hit their faces as the night continued to boom forth. Bruce sat beneath a tree. Em huddled next to him for warmth.
It's funny, Bruce. I was always able to make out the Little Dipper in Orion's belt. It's been so long since I've looked at the sky. It's so peaceful. As if it reminds me that in the end, everything will be alright. You see the North Star? Follow along my finger. And there.
Em guided Bruce to find Orion's belt. He smiled and pointed to the Big Dipper. Guess I'm the big spoon here, he joked as she cuddled next to him. No matter what happened, I will always love you. I always have. I always will. You rocked my world into two. I'm glad we found each other. I think the story here has a happy ending. Bruce smiled and leaned his head against hers. She smiled and put a hairband around his hand. She let her hair drape down, and it lightly blew in the breeze. She turned her focus to the moon and smiled shyly.
I think so too, Bruce. I think so too.
Bruce woke up to howling, as if some animal in pain had broken into his flat. He checked his watch. It was 9:25 in the morning, January 10th. He sighed and jumped out of his bed to find where the noise was coming from. He cursed under his breath, still groggy from sleep deprivation. He went inside the bathroom to find Em crying and holding her arm in place. A bloodied needle was on the floor beside her, and Bruce jumped back. Em looked up in fear before kicking the door.
Don't come inside, Bruce. Let me clean up.
She said as her voice cracked. Everything made sense to Bruce now. Why she hung out around those people. Why she was so jittery. Why she wasn't afraid. He had a suspicion it was something, but never suspected it was hard drugs. He didn't want to know what it was. He didn't want to see it. He broke, falling to his knees, and tears began to stream down his face. Em, you're sick. We need to take you to get help, Bruce pleaded before she snapped back in an aggressive, raspy voice.
No. They'll take me, pump me full of their drugs, give me booty juice, beat me, kill me. I can't do that, no. No, I can't do this. I need to clear my head. I'm sorry, Bruce. I have a problem.
She kicked open the door, holding a towel to her arm.
I can't hurt you like this.
She tried walking over to the front door. She cried as Bruce grabbed her shoulder. She saw he still had on her hairband from New Year's night. She looked into his eyes, afraid.
I'm sorry, Bruce. I'm so sorry.
Her eyes shifted their gaze to his hands, and she threw it off her shoulder.
No. No, Bruce. I need to talk to them. I can't have you. I can't. No. No, let me go. I need to go. They need me.
Em hit Bruce with the back of her one good arm before running out. Bruce was taken aback. Her strength was incredible, despite being anorexic. He was stunned and shook himself up. He ran out after her, but it was too late. She was gone. He sighed and ran over to his iguana to make sure it was okay. He was visibly upset, but there was no damage done, thankfully. Bruce sighed before opening the cage and petting it. It closed its eyes and tilted its head down in submission. Don't worry. We'll get your mama back. I promise. Bruce stood up and began to prepare its food, and quickly chopped up the collard greens and lettuce, setting it inside the cage for it to feed. You know, I never named you, come to think of it. Bruce smiled lightly when closing the cage. A bulb flickered in Bruce's head. His friend Jim had ties to the GCPD. He was lucky he could use his help to get the assistance in finding M. I'm gonna make a call, little guy. I'll be right back. Jim burped as he finished up his burger. The diner was chattering and clanking with noises. Neon lights lined the windows in a retro fashion, and Bruce raised an eyebrow. It had been ages. Jim had just started to grow a mustache, and he fixed his glasses back onto the ridge of his nose. Sounds like heroin, my guy. Bruce, how do you meet these women? How do I find them? Jim joked. Relax. I'm sure she's fine. Just gotta figure something out. Just gotta figure out where. Does she have many friends? Social media? Felonies? Attacked someone before? Yeah, Jim. Me. Christ. Feels like yesterday. Well, maybe not full-on attack me, but she sliced her hand open and wanted me to, well, the less said, the better. She wanted me to use her, throat, but not in a conventional way. Apparently I heard through the grapevine she doesn't want to see me. I mean, I got a call the other night just talking about it too. I didn't really recognize the voice. It sounded familiar though. Jim, man, you gotta help me find her. Bruce sighed and pulled out his phone. The lock screen was that of M. The day was January 15th. The time read 11:55. This is her. I never got a real name, but not many people go by the name of M either, so maybe she's downtown. There is a heroin epidemic down there, and I know she caught that sickness. I saw it yesterday. Bruce continued. Bruce, did she have any affiliates? Yeah, actually, come to think of it, it crashed the plan we had. There were 4 of them. A guy named Ty, Mark, Kai, Harles. I believe she was the one who might have been the caller, actually. Jim jumped and carefully set his drink on the table, to catch himself before he almost spat out his drink. Harles? 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 Harles is the name of some psych major kid who she turned to helping the drug-addicted downtown get their next fills. The real name is Harleen. Short nickname. Everyone there knows it. You don't get out much, do you, Bruce? Jim sighed before standing. His long coat draped behind him, and he looked at his watch. I'll settle a warrant for Harles. Text me the number. Or if you can remember it. Just too many offenses on her list anyway. Might help me gain some good credit among the other officers and chief of police. After all, I'm a fresh rookie when it comes to this detective stuff. First week on the job. Already hate it. Jim snickered. And with some good luck, if we have to find her, we'll find your girlfriend too. I gotta skedaddle, Bruce. Keep in touch. He said as he left a tip of $5 at the table and exited the diner. Bruce sighed and rubbed his eyes, unsure of where to go now. He prayed M would show up soon. His phone buzzed and lit up. It was a text from his mother. Bruce, your father and I are going to the theater on Friday the 19th. Would you like to join us? It read. No, thank you, Mom. I've just got some work to do. M has been acting off recently. Thank you for offering me, though. Have fun, I responded. He turned his gaze outside. The snow was engulfing everything in a milky white haze. Lights zipped past as cars traversed back and forth through the cold, urban jungle. You're out there somewhere, Em. I'll make sure you're alright. I promise. Bruce whispered to himself. Em stumbled down the street, muttering to herself. She was cold. The effects of heroin were wearing off, and she needed stimulation again. She collapsed in the back of the mall and saw a familiar figure walk over to her.
It's been a while, Em. Dropped the boy yet?
Harles called over. Em turned her head and looked up at Harles. Her face was painted white with a red smile over it.
I didn't know what to do. I can't do that to Bruce. I love him.
Em whispered.
Bruce is just a rich prick who doesn't care about you. He cares about your body. When you grow older, he'd just throw you away, just like all of us. Let us take care of him. I'll have Mark on it. Just say the word.
No. Tell Bruce to find me. I'll be where we all hang out at the park. When I'm here, I need him. Promise me, Harles. Tell him to meet me there at 10 p.m. tonight. My phone is dead. I can't call. Please, Harles, please.
Em begged. Harles sighed and agreed. What Em didn't notice was Harles had her fingers crossed. Her gang was almost complete. They just needed a leader. Em could be that, broaden the appeal. She could work the streets just like she worked the school. A plan hatched in her head. If Em wasn't going to go willingly, she'd force Em against Bruce. All she had to do was lie.
I promise, Em. Here, take these. A little push for you. A surprise.
Harles said as she gave Em 2 pills, which Em eagerly grabbed and swallowed. She didn't care what they were so long as they pushed her forward. After a few minutes, she began to head to the park. The wind blew her hair away. Tears ran down her face, and she quickly wiped them away. She looked like hell to most people. You just avoided her. After about an hour, Em finally made it to Gotham City Central Park. She sat down on a bench near the creek where she and Bruce would meet up after class. She crossed her legs and tried to warm herself. The noon sun sank quickly. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes turned into hours, until the night finally sank in the crimson-red sky like the pitch-black ocean engulfing a shipwreck on fire. Surely Bruce would come. She tapped her foot impatiently, waiting. She didn't give up. It was pitch black and she looked around. No Bruce. She couldn't accept that. He had to be late, right? The pitch-black sun raised, then sank, then rose again. She had waited 2 days for Bruce. She couldn't get him out of her head. She couldn't believe he would just abandon her. She collapsed to the floor, screaming and crying. She sounded more like a wounded animal. Spying from afar was Harles. She waited 15 minutes before figuring now was the time. She approached the emotional Em with caution and sighed, faking concern.
Em? Bruce? Well, I was right. He doesn't want to be seen with you. You deserved better, Em. He was just some rich playboy whispering nothings into your ears. Look at you. Look at what he did to you. Here. Here, you need something to keep you going.
Harles walked over and helped Em up to her feet. She was silent. All she did was look at Harles. She began to laugh from hysteria. She was losing herself. Harles pulled out a needle and some cereal bars for Em to munch on while they returned to the corner of the mall. Em looked away as the high began to hit her. She slumped over in a state of euphoria and spotted Ty and Mark running over. Not too far from them came Kai. She smiled and felt a sense of belonging just like she did with Bruce. These were her family now. This was her calling. To lead them to victory. She just needed to get her strength back. Her eyelids fell shut, and a smile ran across her face as Mark and Ty lifted her up, carrying her to the back of a car. She didn't know where she was going, or what car it was. All she knew was she felt safe with them. She would make this blossom into an empire, and no one would stop her dream. Still, memories of Bruce intruded, and she tried her best to ignore them. She felt a hand touch her cheek.
Harles? Is the eclipse soon?
Yes. Yes, Em, should I prepare?
Charles asked. There was a silence. So quiet, you could hear a pin drop to the floor. Em had a chance to go back. She wrestled the idea with herself for a few more seconds before coming to her decision.
His parents. Aim for the heart.
Bruce checked his clock. It was 10:45 p.m., January 19th. The eclipse was set to happen at midnight exactly. The sky was hazy with a red tinge, and thoughts of M clouded his mind. He set his truck into park and looked in the dash. His iguana still didn't have a name, but it was fairly tamed down by now. It had kept him company for his drive, and he patted its head softly. "Hey buddy, I'll be back. I'll leave the car on, shouldn't be too long. Just have to make sure we've got something for tomorrow, then we'll continue on the drive, alright?" Bruce whispered to his blue reptilian friend. He sighed as he got out and walked over to his flat, hoping that maybe its mother would come back to him to share the memory of the moon engulfing the sun. As he went to unlock the door, he heard crashing. "M?" Bruce yelled. He kicked the door open to see it was pitch black inside. Several figures stood in his doorway.
We couldn't help ourselves, Brucey. And they really should have hired more security. Only two? Come on, that's amateur.
A familiar voice echoed. Harl's. "Who? What did you do? Where is M?"
Right here. Oh. But oh, the poor girl, how she suffered. How you made her starve for 2 days waiting for you.
Bruce stared in disbelief. He thought M never wanted to see him again.
You don't remember? Of course not. Mark, now!
Bruce felt a pain in the back of his head before he fell into darkness, swirling. He didn't know if it was an hour or a few minutes. Eventually his eyes began to open and adjust. He saw he was still in his house, but lacked clothes. The clock on his wall read 11:45. Red tinged the room around him as he jostled back to life. The eclipse was here, and whatever they planned, it wasn't good. As Bruce's eyes adjusted, he saw 2 figures hanging from the ceiling. One was a woman, the other was a man. He squinted and tried to move forward, only realizing his arm was pinned down by a boot and his legs were tied to sofas. He kicked to try and release himself, to no avail. As midnight rolled closer, he could make out the figures in front of him, and 4 people standing behind them. The 5th stood on his arm, holding him in place. "No." Bruce whispered as he saw one of them had a mustache. A very familiar mustache. And that the other clutched pearls in her hand. It was Thomas and Martha. Bruce let out a primal scream, so loud that it startled the man holding his arm in place. As the moon eclipsed the sun, the whole room bathed in red light. His mother and father held on meat hooks, dangling from the ceiling. His pupils narrowed as his lungs began to shred. From behind them, M walked over to him. Tears streamed down his face. His teeth began to clench as he wheezed and hyperventilated. Rage was consuming Bruce. He didn't care if he would be shot, stabbed, or killed. He was going to kill M. No matter what. Her face was caked in white makeup, black lipstick, and her vibrant green eyes contrasted with the room. "Fucking hell. You killed them. You killed my mother. You killed my father. You!" Bruce screamed. He was whipping himself into a feral rage that even sent a chill down the spines of his 5 captors.
You? Always about poor Bruce. the millionaire. You never knew what it was like to grow up like me. You betrayed me, so I betrayed you. You took my life, my destiny, my everything, Bruce. You were my everything, and you turned your back on me. No. Shut up, Bruce. I don't even want to hear it.
Screamed in response. She turned and grabbed Harl's baseball bat and began to beat him across the body. Ribs broke, and he coughed out. She kicked Bruce in the stomach before turning over to the bodies of Thomas and Martha Wayne. She went behind Thomas and mockingly moved his arms.
Brucey, Brucey, uh-oh. Look at you. You couldn't help us. You couldn't help her. Hey, Martha, do you think we're being too easy on him? Oh, of course you'd take his side. Look at his perfect little face.
Threw the arm away from her, and the body swayed back and forth. The bodies dripped crimson liquids to the floor.
This is just the beginning of your torture, Bruce. You think this is bad? It'll make your life a living hell. Starting with leaking your nudes. Aw, look at that. Isn't it fantastic? Definitely makes up with girth.
Em ran to the back of the room and turned on a laptop as she went to press upload on a drafted post. It was photos she had taken of him while he was unconscious, completely exposed. Memories of the times Bruce had been intimate with Em flooded through his head. He wanted to cry, but the adrenaline was forcing him into a state of rage that couldn't be reasoned with. All around him, red. All 5 of his captors were laughing, until a loud bang came from the other side of the door. It was swift, quick, but instant. Bruce felt his arm let up, and the boot released his arm. With a sickening thud, the man standing over him fell. It was Mark, his head exposed like an exploded watermelon. Chunks of red and pink brain matter covered his floor and walls, soaking Bruce in blood. Bruce didn't know what caused the death of Mark, and he didn't care. He was going to untie himself and kill Em.
Fuck! The back window! Out the back window!
Em yelled as she flipped the laptop out of fear and stumbled to make her escape with her friends. She slipped and hit her head on the side of the window, and a chunk of her hair got stuck in the pane. As he began to untie himself, he heard more gunshots as the door handles were shot to unlock the door. Shortly after, he saw the door fly open. Bullets flew all around the house as the 4 remaining members of the gang ran to the back of the window to make their escape. Red and blue lights flickered around the house, followed by sirens and Jim shouting. A flashlight shone in, and he looked up to see Alfred beaten and bloodied. He rushed over, and Bruce's eyes shined bright red. His face set into a perpetual scowl, but the tears streamed down his face. Bruce, thank God. They thought I was dead. I tracked them here, but helped Bruce onto his feet, and ran outside with him. By now the eclipse had passed, and the night sky was a familiar purple. Alfred tossed his M1 Grand over to Jim, who nodded and ran inside the house with several other GCPD officers. Both Alfred and Bruce collapsed to the floor. They both looked like hell. Bruce curled into the fetal position as EMTs rushed to their aid. Bruce closed his eyes and tried to shut everything out. Suddenly, everything went black.